So, what do you think when your dentist sends you an automated email wishing you a happy birthday? Hey there, it's Matthew Warner, and this is the Finding Uno Show. Welcome back to the Finding Uno Show. Who's Uno? Oh, you know Uno. He's that one lost sheep the shepherd leaves the 99 to go after, and we are here to help you find him. I'm your host, Matthew Warner, joined by my co-host, Matthew Sewell. How's it going today, Matt?
Good, Matt. As always, good to be with you.
So what do you think? Do you like getting those automated emails you get from different companies on your birthday?
So I got to play a little devil's advocate here because yes and no, right? So one, sorry, dentists, that you're the ones we're picking on here. I've never gotten the happy birthday from my dentist in particular. It's mainly just you have an appointment tomorrow or something, and I'm like, oh great, that's helpful. But what I have gotten a birthday from is this bakery slash coffee shop I live in Spokane, so Coeur d'Alene, Idaho is about 45 minutes away. Really the only reason that I take my car to get serviced in Coeur d'Alene is so I can go there like once every 3 months, because if I lived closer, it would be bad for my health. But they have like the best cinnamon rolls ever, and on your birthday they send you a coupon for a free cinnamon roll. So I have to say those kinds of automated texts, they know. No, they don't. But I think they just give everybody a free cinnamon roll. But I think that's fine. But if I think about it on the other side of things, if it was a coffee shop that had garbage cinnamon rolls, or they weren't that great, or I had a poor experience there, then I would be more inclined to ignore it. But so for free cinnamon rolls, I would say 100% yes. Okay. But anything beyond that, maybe not. Businesses, and I know we're going to get into churches and all that sort of thing, but so yes and no, I think would be my answer.
Okay, so free cinnamon rolls, free stuff you really like from a place you really love. Okay, you mentioned like a reminder about an appointment tomorrow, like all those those are good automations. So it's not to say there's not good examples of this. I think it's on my mind a lot lately. We get asked this question a lot at Flocknote. Well, can you automate more of these kind of things? Can it send an automatic birthday message to people when it's their birthday and tell them happy birthday? Whatever. There's lots of different examples. And it always, I don't know, I have a bias against that kind of stuff. And I think some of it's because I see how often it is just abused. And where I get an email wishing me a happy birthday, and it's just a reminder that how do they even know what my birthday is? Can I somehow remove my information from that list? Just a reminder that I actually don't want them knowing my birthday. But I think really what it is, as I thought about it more, is the more you automate this stuff, the less meaningful it becomes, And so I think what happens is the gesture we're going for, the more you try to automate it and make it easy, the less worth it is to even do. And so the whole effect gets diminished. So what you're actually trying to achieve, which is this, acknowledgement of a meaningful moment in someone's life, actually becomes an occasion for them being annoyed or just cluttering their inbox or reminding them that, their birthday, and it's like, how do you even know my birthday? It depends on the organization. But so it got me thinking about like, what makes a gesture worth something? Because I was talking with another friend. So because when you get like a handwritten note, this stands out today, right? Because if someone takes the time to handwrite you something, it means a lot, because built into that, you're like, this person actually took time out of their day, longer than normal. They did something, they didn't just send it as an email. They went to the trouble of getting some paper and a stamp and an envelope and writing my address down on it. So they did it was an extra amount of effort, and usually much more thoughtful. And so they stand out. But even that, you can now hire services where it's like a machine that copies it uploads your handwriting to it, and then actually takes a real pen and a machine, and it hand writes whatever custom messages you want, automated however you want to automate it. And of course, it just got me how absurd that is, because number one, it's kind of a lie. So when someone gets that, you're pretending it was a handwritten, thoughtful note to get their attention when it really wasn't. And so it's actually a form of lying, to an extent, when you pretend it was something personal and thoughtful when it actually wasn't personal or thoughtful. But also it just totally, it's like ruining handwritten letters for everybody. because now when we actually send, because our team sends handwritten letters out to folks whenever we can, but it kind of ruins it the more that it gets out there, because now people are going to see a handwritten note and go, oh, that was just written by a machine. It's not even meaningful anymore. And so the more we automate those things, the less meaningful they become. And so what makes a gesture worth something? To me, it's, one is how much thought was in it, and two, how much effort did it take? How much, it could be time, it could be pain or work, or even money, which money represents, it took me a certain amount of time to earn this money that then I'm willing to spend on you. So how much thought did we put into it, and how much effort are we putting into it? And so the spirit of our age with all this technology is to basically reduce both of those things, that I don't have to think about it anymore, and I don't have to spend any effort on it anymore. And so it's going down like this, as how meaningful any of these gestures are. The less we have to think about them, and the less effort we have to spend on them. But yet that's what we're trying to do, is think less about them and spend less effort on them. And so there's this paradox in my mind of how we're just undermining the whole point we do this. And I think it's especially something to think about in ministry, because I think this is probably why. So the reason I think I get a little bit, I'm so biased against them, I think, in these different ways, because like we mentioned at the beginning, there are legitimate uses of this kind of automated personalization that does help people. I mean, we could think about something like, maybe it's not a birthday, but it's a wedding anniversary. So what if every married couple within your church got an email on their wedding anniversary, or the week before their wedding anniversary, or the day before, and wish them, we know you got a wedding anniversary coming up. Here's a discount to the local restaurant to go on a date, or here's a prayer you can pray together to renew your vows and commitment to each other in your marriage, right? So you could automate that, and it would be meaningful. There is some thought there. So as a church, there's some unique things you could do that would automate it. But I think the reason I get overall this sort of why I'm overall, I think I have a bias against it, is because I see leaders just wanting to basically think less about stuff and spend less effort on it. And it's essentially undermining what is really the most important part when you're growing a church and a community there, and that's growing in size or in depth, of your relationships with the people that are there, is it's built on personal relationships. And so opportunities to go deeper and more personal with individual people is what makes the community what it is. It's what makes it strong. It's what makes it meaningful to people. And so to the extent that a church is able to grow in size in the community, it's really based on its ability to scale its individual relationships, so its ability to build strong personal relationships with people, which of course one leader can't have a really deep personal relationship with every single person in a large church, but all of your staff and then all of its volunteers, and you teach your other members of your community to have these kind of personal relationships, and you can have a very strong, thriving community. But
yeah, I was going to say there's a couple thoughts in there, because I mean, on the one hand, there's it's like this interplay between businesses and churches, and like the key differences, right? Because there's a lot of things that I think churches should do in terms of thinking more like a business, right? Being agile, tinkering, not just doing things because we've always done them, having good staffing practices and organizational leadership, all that sort of thing is all well and good. But we forget that the church is not, that businesses are trying to replicate what churches used to do, right? Creating loyalty and creating community and all that sort of thing. And it's just fundamentally not, right? That. And so churches shouldn't aspire to those types of, like, I think what you call like a big data approach to doing church, right? Because it defeats the whole purpose. So the example that I thought of is when I was in college, we had a retreat that we went on over the weekend. And if it was your first time on this retreat, or if you were working the retreat leaders, unbeknownst to you, were contacting all of your family and all of your friends and everybody else who was like on this prayer team for the retreat to write you letters that then, like Saturday night or whatever, you'd get this little box full of all these letters that you didn't know about from all these people telling you, how much they're praying for you and they care about you and all this sort of thing. And I distinctly remember the first time I went, it was there were the people who wrote it, so my parents and my sisters, and it was awesome, and it was handwritten and heartfelt. Some people didn't get around to doing it, but I had no idea. I didn't know who they contacted, and so I didn't think about those people. But there were a couple of people who ran out of time or were just lazy or something like that, who I got like a strip of paper that was like typed out with like the person's name typed out, and there was no writing on it or anything. You could just tell it was like, I can't say the word, but it was like half effort, you know what I mean? Of like just clipped and dropped into the letter. And I still remember that, and I'm still annoyed about that. It was like 12 years ago when this happened. So, I mean, I think there's a good, clear analogy there that like you don't want the little old lady who doesn't understand how technology works, who doesn't understand that she was a part of like a form automation, walking up to the pastor saying, "I can't believe you remembered my birthday." And then the pastor being like, "What are you talking about?" Because we've heard stories like that before, right? I mean, God forbid it's this lady who thinks she has this person who maybe is really lonely, 2020, right? There's all sorts of those types of stories. And to have something like that not actually be personal is the complete opposite of what churches should be doing. So, I mean, that's just kind of the thing that it made me think of in terms of like why it's important to be more personal.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I mean, it doesn't happen as often anymore, but it still does, and it's a testament to the fact that when we pretend something is personalized and authentic, and thoughtful, even though it was automated by a robot and sent out on our behalf, it's a form of lying to people. And some people most people now get, okay, this was probably an automated thing. I'm not going to go up to the pastor and say, "Hey, thanks for remembering my birthday," even though he's going to go, like you said, "What? I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, that was just our robot in the office that sent that out." But so it's a testament to that. I mean, when I step back, big picture, it's like Americans are leaving the church in large numbers. In general, they're drifting out of the faith. They're going to church less and less and less, regardless of sort of the individual success of maybe your individual church or parish. They're not leaving because they didn't get a personalized automated, email from you on their birthday or whenever, an automated follow-up campaign. That's not why they're leaving. They're leaving because they don't have real personal. There's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is they don't have deep personal connections with your community in their life. And so, again, these steps towards automating things undermine that whole effort, because that's when the real work begins. So sure, some things you do en masse, like a bulk email. We're going to send, "Hey, everybody, here's what's going on," right? Or, "Hey, this group, here's what's going on you need to know." And that's what we do at Flocknote. There's nothing wrong with that. You need that to communicate with lots of people at once. But that's really when the work begins, is because now you get one person replying back that has a question. You have someone else that has a problem. You have someone else that, is just needs someone to talk to at the church, right? And it's like, that's when it begins. That's when the work begins. And if you want robots to take over at that personal space, so you have sort of the mass communication, but then once you get into this personal space of building personal relationships with people, that's where evangelization begins. And that happens with two real human beings, not with some sort of automated process that the computer or your robot does. And that's what we're missing out on, is we think our job's done. I sent it out. The computer will sort of handle everything else. And it's like, no, that's when the work actually begins. And it's the opportunities there. So when someone replies back, they're like, it's not more work. Wow, I get to do my job. I get to go build a relationship with this person. I get to help them with a problem they have. I get to listen to them and try to figure out how we can serve them better. And it's only the extent that we can scale that our community actually grows in a real healthy way, and that we're going to even begin to address this large crisis as a country of people just generally drifting quickly out of the church. And so, again, we're a technology company. We love using technology to solve problems, but we have to be intentional about which ones we're solving, and also understanding that even when you do solve one of those problems, what's the opportunity cost? Like what did we give up to solve that problem? Or what are we less likely to do now because it becomes a kind of crutch that's actually not going to be good for us overall? So the Amish are actually really good about that when they look at adopting a certain technology. They're not totally against technology, but they look at, okay, if we adopt this technology, what will it do to our relationships? How will it impact how we grow as a community, what we mean to each other, how we practice our faith, how do we work and interact with each other, our social order, all of those things. And then they say, okay, is that a good thing or not overall? Even though it may solve all kinds of problems, it may still be bad overall. And I think this can be in that range of thinking where it's like, yeah, that seems like that would solve a problem for us, but it actually undermines a lot of the things we're trying to do, or that we really need to do most, which is build deeper, more personal, more meaningful relationships with individual people in our community. And so anyway, I know I have probably an unfair bias against it sometimes, but that's why, is because I really feel passionately about these other issues. And I think that a lot of times it's tempting to try to get technology. We live in an age where, we want technology to solve all these problems for us. But I think it undermines what we really need to be focusing on so often.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I hope that was helpful for anybody, but I know it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Matt, I'm sure it's one of your favorite topics to talk about. Just like thinking through technology as a means to an end, because we want to be thinking like Dwight and giving the robot not only make it 3/4 the size of a regular person, but only give it a 6-foot extension cord so it can't go take
chase
over our
you.
lives.
Yeah.
And how big do you want this robot?
Life size.
No. Better make it 2/3. Easier to stop if it turns on us. Look, I gave him a 6-foot extension cord so he can't chase us.
That's perfect.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Oh, good. Well, that's about it for the topic today. But of course, at the end of all these episodes, we like to take a listener question. So before we go today, we're gonna head over to our People Got Church Problems segment. Okay, today's question is from our friend Crystal. Crystal Ash, kind of a long one. We share information across several platforms: Flocknote, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and to our website. And obviously, as a parish, have quite a bit to communicate with various events, fundraisers, offertory reminders, etc. We keep Flocknote fresh and avoid weekly repetition, but what's the right balance of sharing across all of the platforms to be sure to remind people enough, but without those reminders becoming white noise? In other words, how much frequency is enough without being too much? Kind of a broad question.
Yeah, great question, Crystal. And the fact that you're asking it is I think really important, because it means you're being sensitive to not sending too much stuff. So I think that's one of the things common mistakes we see is churches kind of not caring about that. Well, it's all good information, just send it all out there. If people want it, they'll consume it. If they don't, they won't. But you can become very ineffective at communicating. And like you said, a lot of it can start to become white noise. So we see that example like with the announcements. The announcements a lot of times on Sunday end up as kind of white noise for people, similar with the bulletin, because as soon as they click in, we've trained them that most of it's not for us. We've trained them that, it's maybe a little longer than we care for, we're ready to go. And so we just tune it out and start moving on in our minds to the next thing. And so the same thing happens with every one of those channels you mentioned. The trouble is there's not an easy answer. It's one of those it depends answers. And we actually did a show on this topic last season. So go back to season 1 of the Finding You Know show, and you'll see a show in there where we talk about, how much to send, how often to send is a healthy amount, how much is too much, and we discussed that a little bit. So I would definitely recommend everyone checking that out if this is something you're interested in. But in general, a quick answer is we have to say a lot less in general. We're saying too much, and we have to make the communications we do send a lot better. Because if you think about what our members are receiving, they get so much information on every one of those channels. And so if it's not high quality, it's not going to stand out, and it's going to just add to the noise. So the noise will remain. We can either choose to add to the noise and continue to be ignored, or we can find creative ways to stand out from it. And one of the ways you stand out is you got to send higher quality communication. So you're always saying, well, what's the best of the stuff we're going to send? Like, spend some time making this entertaining, interesting, packed with value. But it also means you got to prioritize information. So you got to cut out probably a lot of the things you're used to saying, because if they're not reading any of it, it doesn't really matter if you're saying it all anyways. But if you train them that when they do open an email from you or get a communication from you, that it's short and it's always really important stuff, then you're going to train them to always open your emails. If it's always long, then you're going to train them to come back to your email later because they don't have time to read it right now. And of course, they rarely come back to it. So, and again, it also depends on the event, right? So if it's a particular event, sending out a reminder the night before is a great idea. But if it's your regular announcements or it's some other ministry promotion thing you have going on, you need to be more deliberate about, we're not going to promote this every single Sunday in the bulletin. You see that a lot. You have like the same announcement in the bulletin in the same spot saying the same thing. And of course, what that becomes to people is visual white noise. They don't even see it there anymore. So you could change something in that spot and they don't even notice it because they're used to just passing over it. But like the event's a good, another tactic is you need to make sure you're segmenting information. So if you're reminding people about an event, you shouldn't be reminding everyone about the event. You should be reminding the people that are coming to the event about the event. So that's, again, something we help you do in Flocknote is segment your list to the groups that really matter. If you're making an announcement about, the women's prayer group, like it shouldn't be going to men. It should be going to the women's prayer group. It shouldn't be going to everybody. It shouldn't be announced on Sunday. It should be sent to just the folks who need it and who need to hear it. Because otherwise people, again, get used to realizing that most of the things you're telling me are not for me, they're for somebody else. So segmentation, prioritization, and improving your quality. But then also look at your data rates. So if you're looking at, what are my open rates? Are they going up? Are they going down? What can I do to try to get my open rates back up? If you're looking at email where you can track that sort of thing, that can give you an indication is this continuing to be white noise, or am I saying something that's really standing out this time? And you see the open rates go up, So again, we've got some other episodes that help you with subjects, writing good subject lines, getting good open rates, all that kind of thing. But that's a short-ish answer. There's a lot more to be said on that, but it's great that you're thinking about that because then you can start to address it and really hopefully improve the way you're communicating.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Crystal, for that question. That's all the time we got for today. But before we go, we always like to kick it over to our friend Liz to find out where Uno is today.
Hey everyone, this week we're featuring Uno on the slopes in Colorado with Flocknote's very own happiness engineer, Corinne. Thank you, Corinne, for sharing this photo with us. You always wear Uno well. If you find Uno, snap a photo and send it to us at howdy@findinguno.com and we may feature you in a future episode. And if you need Flocknote swag, this is an insider tip. You can leave us a review for our podcast and then send us an email letting us know you left a review, and we will send you a pair of Flock socks so that you can share the photo with us. Finally, if you have any questions about church communication, maybe you want to know how can I utilize Flocknote for our church's capital campaign this year, or perhaps you want to know how you can send the bulletin via email. Any general questions about church communication can be dropped on our hotline at findinguno.com. We have a button there in the upper right-hand corner, so you can click that to leave your question, and we may answer that in a future episode. But that's all we've got for you today, and we will see you next time on the Finding Uno Show. Bye-bye.